the chat. As you know, I love talking to everyone from the wider racing community. And today I'm continuing my series of talking to owners. And joining me today is Brae Sokolski. G'day, Brae. How are you?
Very well, Ben.
First of all, thanks very much for agreeing to come on. It's been a little while to try and get hold of you because you're a very busy man. Because away from racing, you have MaxCap Group, which look after property finance, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. That's my primary business interest, and been operating for 15 years. And it's enabled me to fortunately pursue my racing interests outside of my business interests. It's been a focus of mine for the better part of my, my main productive years. So you have to make the most of those, and I feel I have through the avenue of finance and my property finance business, MaxCap.
And how did someone with a law degree end up in property finance? Interesting strategy.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. There are actually a lot of lawyers in finance. I guess the analytical skills that you acquire doing your law degree really do enable you to better analyse and assess the risk and return, which is the key fundamental of finance. I never really had any intention to be a lawyer. I just thought it would be a virtue to have that skill set. I didn't really particularly know where I'd end up and what industry, but I always thought it would be valuable, and it has transpired that way. But you would be surprised how many either qualified lawyers or practicing lawyers there are in finance and particularly in investment banking.
And just moving across to racing, obviously, which is why we're here. Tell me, how did you get involved with Incentivised, which is the Melbourne Cup favourite and races in your distinctive colours of the green, the black, and the white tartan?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It was actually back when we were able to travel sort of mid this year, and I was in a lounge waiting to board a plane, and asked them to put it on Sky Channel, and just saw the last furlong of that win at Eagle Farm, which at that time was his fourth consecutive win. And he won by about 9 lengths, and I just thought to myself, I don't really follow Queensland racing that closely. I just thought to myself that was phenomenal, and wrote an email actually which just said review Incentivised as a follow-up. And then the next week in the office I went and had a look at the replay, and what I didn't realise is the horse had won by that sort of margin. I assumed he had a soft lead, but he actually was 3 deep for the first sort of half mile of the race, and then the jockey decided to take the initiative because they were slowing up and take the horse to the front. So you had to work considerable amount mid-race. And, obviously in most instances, you have horses who do that feeling the pinch at the end of the race. In this instance, the horse had his head in his chest and raced away and won by over 9 lengths. And I thought to myself, that's just something I haven't seen before, irrespective of the class. So I went back further into his replays and did some more analysis and due diligence, and just decided this horse was something special that I had to be involved in. And picked up the phone, cold called Steve Tregea, and the rest is history.
And those, as I said, they're quite distinctive, the green, grey and the black tartan. What's the story behind them? Because I have the races on when I work from home every day, and I nearly see those colours every day. So, yeah, what's the story behind them?
You'd see, if you have the races on every day, you'd see a lot of my slow horses carrying those colours, finishing at the tail of fields. Because everyone who doesn't sort of follow racing that closely says, all I see is those colours winning, but I tell you what, they lose a hell of a lot as well. I wanted something different. I didn't want sort of the same old patterns that are generally applied to colours. Green's my favourite colour, and wanted something that was distinctive and different, which they are. And, it is important because that's your brand in racing, your colours, and people who say they don't really care whether their colours are on or not, I don't think they're being particularly honest about it, because everyone prefers a horse to race in their colours, and have a horse that incentivises quality in your colours is actually a true privilege. But I've got a lot of horses that race in other owners' colours. Doesn't affect your enjoyment of the experience, but it is something special when those colours are carried to victory, irrespective of whether it's a country maiden or whether it's a Group 1 race. And I'd like to think, my kids and grandkids will inherit those, and they'll still be seen on racetracks long after I've departed.
And you say other colours as well. You have a fair few horses with your good friend Ozzy Kahir. Tell me, how did you meet Ozzy, and how did that all come to be? Because you just had a Group 1 winner just on the weekend with Sierra Sue.
Yeah, that's right. I've known Ozzy for about 5 years. Yep. And I got involved, in a European horse through Kieran Marr before I even knew who Ozzy was. And it was only moderately successful, but I met him on the racetrack and we immediately connected and had a great chemistry. And from that point forward, the relationship has grown, and our interests together have grown, and not just in the racing arena, also in business, given he's a real estate developer and I'm a real estate financier. We've done some very, very large transactions together, and it's just been a fabulous journey, and he's such a fantastic person. It makes racing so much more enjoyable when you're racing horses with people you know and respect. And I certainly can say that about Ozzy. And it's also quite synergistic because Ozzy's got all the connections into the European market and has incredible depth and knowledge of European racing, and he sources the European horses, and I tend to focus on buying the yearlings and sourcing sort of local talent such as Incentivised, and we put each other basically in every horse that we're in. So it's a true sort of partnership, I'm sure that it's going to be long term, and we'll always race horses together and hopefully continue our incredible vein of success that we've enjoyed.
And Brae, you mentioned yearlings. I saw you at English Easter this year. What is it that you're looking for when you're at the sales? Because I ask this of all my guests on my show.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for different things in yearlings, aren't they?
Yeah, very true, Ben. That's what I love about it. It's such a subjective process. Yeah. Everyone has their opinions and their theories, and that's what the beauty of it is. If it was formulaic and a science, and the more you spent, better the horse was going to be, it wouldn't really be that magnetising. I love the fact of the unknown. I love that it's got the right balance. Yeah, sure, the better the pedigree, the better the confirmation, the more likely. But that's not necessarily always the case. That's just a generalisation. So, you've got to also recognise your limitations. Those intelligences, they say intelligence is about knowing you understanding your own ignorance. And one thing I know, I don't have the requisite expertise or experience to be selecting horses based on how they look and their conformation. So what I do is I partner with people that have that expertise and can effectively select for me on that basis. And the part I play is, I have very sort of dogmatic view on, pedigrees and what I look for and my own theories. And I do all the work through the catalogue and shortlist them. And then I hand it over to Matty Scown, who's my bloodstock manager, and also he actually heads up Yarraman Park. Matty's a fantastic young guy. We get on like a house on fire. We don't just, it's not just about the business with us. We actually love it and really enjoy each other's company. And we collaborate. And, from my short list, he narrows it down. And then we have our, we'll have however many horses it may be that remain that we then target and hope that we're not outbid. And it's been a really successful process thus far. And, we'll continue to back ourselves.
So does Matt Scan effectively play the same role as J-Mac's brother in Luke McDonald, like what Luke does for Jerry Harvey, but Matt doesn't?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and he's got just a brilliant eye, and I've learned a lot, about horses' constitutions and what to look for. But at the end of the day, I'll never ever be an expert, and I'll never have his level of discernment in selecting a horse. I enjoy the process of just standing side by side and watching him. It's a really healthy collaboration. And it's interesting, I say to people, it's like when he parades a horse, it's almost like, he's putting a model on a catwalk and assessing every single angle and physical attribute and things that are, to be honest, like a layman or an untrained eye just doesn't pick up. He does. So he's a fabulous asset for me to have as part of my racing interests.
And what's your finger in the pie at the moment with regards to breeding? Obviously, you've got Yes standing in Cornwall, but have you got any others at the moment as well?
Yeah, so I've retained a good share in Yes. So he's the sort of my only stallion interest. Hopefully, I can find another. So Dragonade will end up a stallion, and I'll certainly retain an interest in him. Obviously, a very different profile of horse to Yes. But so he's the horse, obviously, that I'll try and support as much as possible with my broodmare band. And I've got about 10 broodmares and looking to probably have between 10 and 15, focus on quality, not quantity. I've got a number of sort of outstanding race mares that I'm involved with, and hopefully a couple of those will end up in Yes bloodstock and part of the broodmare band, and just continually upgrading it to try and have as many blue hens as possible. And as I said, focus on really the quality, not the quantity.
And you say quality, not quantity, Brae. Do you prefer to race them yourself rather than sell through selling, or what do you like?
Yeah, good question. Like, to be honest with you, I'm loath to make racing too much about business. I spend my sort of days worrying about that from a risk return perspective, and the putting a commercial lens on everything I do from a MaxCap group perspective. Like my racing interests, you don't want to be losing money hand over fist and making imprudent decisions. But by the same token, my main focus is like success and achieving great things in the industry, not making money. So from that perspective, I'm more of a guy inclined to race rather than sell. But I think you have to balance it. And to make your racing interest sustainable, or your interest in the industry sustainable, I really think you have to be on both sides of the ledger. To this point in time, I've really been solely on the buy side, but I do think it's important to also be on the sell side. So I think increasingly over the years, you'll see horses sold under the Yes bloodstock banner, but the majority I still will retain to race.
And then obviously I think probably the one that really sort of threw you up into bright lights yourself as an owner, I feel anyway, was when Yes won the Golden Rose and then ended up winning the Everest as well. What an amazing horse it was. It took you on a ride, didn't it? Now it's standing at Cornwall Stud. Yeah,
I mean, that's the ultimate in racing, is really to buy a yearling and to go through that selection process, be involved in nurturing and development, and that in this instance alongside Darren Weir, and then to have him end up winning the Everest, in the colours and all the sort of glory and adulation associated with that was one of the greatest moments of my life. And the beauty of him being a colt is, I get to stay in for the journey, hopefully for the next 15 to 20 years, watching his progeny, whether they're mine or not. You still feel part of them. They're still by Yes. So it gives you a really extended thrill through the breeding career of that horse, and something I'd love to do again. And I'm hell-bent on making it happen.
Where does your love of racing and breeding come from, Brae?
Well, I don't have a background in it, Ben, and it confounds a lot of people that I'm so obsessed with horses and entrenched in the industry when, my father and my family have no background in the industry whatsoever. I was just in my final years of school and wanted a distraction from exams and started punting with a few mates, like anyone, sort of the same origins in terms of how you sort of start with a passing interest in racing. And that just sort of grew over the years. And I always wanted to get involved in racehorse ownership. And I did, even at a young age, with small shares and cheap horses, and just had a great time. None of them were any good, but just a lot of fun with your mates and the camaraderie that comes with it. And obviously, I had to wait till I had the financial capacity to do it in a more significant way, which I was fortunate enough, at a relatively young age to be able to sort of be more heavily and seriously involved. It's something I'm hugely passionate about, and also very proselytizing in terms of wanting to bring people into the industry, and particularly into racehorse ownership, because I'm so passionate about it, and I want everyone to be able to experience the thrill of owning a horse. It's not about having to own a Group 1 winner. It's seriously just about owning a horse that wins races. That's the key focus for me as well, is giving back to the industry. And I'm on the board of TROA, of the Thoroughbred Racehorse Owners Association, with Jonathan Munns. And I'm really keen to give back to the industry and put as much energy as I can into advocating for racehorse ownership.
And seriously, racehorse ownership and being a member of race clubs and stuff like that, like what I am, it is seriously, and you find this yourself too, Brae, it is one of the best ways to meet people. Because on one side of you can have a little farmer from country Queensland who owns half a horse, and on the other side of you can have a sheep from Dubai. You never know who you're going to meet in a race course, do you?
Yeah, that's right. It's a great melting pot of humanity. And like you said, you've got, tradies racing horses against the sheiks. And I love that about racing, the accessibility. And it's known as a sport of kings, but I think it's really important, in terms of the way it's promoted, that people understand that it's accessible and it's not just for toffs, and it's not the dominion of, solely the dominion of billionaires. I think Australia does a really good job at democratising racehorse ownership. And the syndicators have been a huge part in, the racing infiltrating into the mainstream. That's what separates our industry from others in Europe and North America, where unfortunately is still the dominion of the ultra wealth. I think that's what separates the Australian racing industry from all others.
And in your spare time, what do you like to do, Brae, away from breeding and racing?
Racing's like my passion, and it's sort of subsumed my other interests to a large extent. Between business and racing, like they're my sort of two key focuses. And otherwise, like everyone, I love, being with family and friends and just enjoying life. And hopefully it's not too far away till we can go back out and enjoy, going out to dinner and socialising again. I enjoy life, and travel, I guess, is another big passion of mine that, obviously has been taken away from all of us for the last 18 months. So looking forward to getting back on a plane and getting to Europe and enjoying, other cultures and hopefully that's not too far away.
And just on Very Elleegant that won the Caulfield Cup last year, I feel like I got a special link to that because on the saddle cloth they had all the MRC members' names, and I was lucky enough to have it on Very Elleegant's, which is pretty cool. Tell me, how did you get into that one? And who is Jamara Bloodstock? Is that the main guy in New Zealand?
So that's a very good question, because that's how I got involved. So Jamara Bloodstock is Mark and John Carter, who bred Humidor.
Okay.
When we bought half of Humidor after he ran sort of midfield in the Cantala one year, no one knew about the horse, but he probably should have won that day. And we were fortunate enough to acquire 50% of him. And once again, one of the great things about ownership is you get to meet some fabulous people. And I immediately connected with John and Mark, and to this day we've got a very, very close relationship. I call them my New Zealand brothers. And at the time, Very Elleegant had a handful of starts in New Zealand, and she was a much sought after commodity. And the Carter's father had a connection with the breeder of Very Elleegant, and he wanted to stay in the horse. And that connection persuaded him to go with the Carters as opposed to a number of other suitors who were offering similar money. And then when they sort of acquired the horse, they rang me and asked if I wanted to be involved, and the rest is history. So, yeah, it's amazing how what a connection or one thing can lead to in terms of ownership. And we also bought Subpoena together. So we've had amazing success racing horses, myself and the Carters.
And just one last one, Brae. What's on the horizon for the breeding and racing interests of Brae Sokolski?
Well, I've got a very exciting spring carnival, obviously headlined by Very Elleegant and Incentivised. So I'm hopeful I'll be able to pick up another major race. So very excited about their prospects. And then just continuing to, grow my business interests or my racing interests to, like I said, give back as much as I can to the industry. I'm keen to sort of try and assume some more senior positions in racing administration. I've got a lot of ideas as to how the industry can improve itself and be a little bit more progressive, and just continue to be involved and harness my passion, for the benefit of the industry as a whole. Because it's not just about me. Legitimately, I want to help the industry, and I have so much faith and confidence in the future of the industry. But it's critical that the people that have strong vested interests and can add value are contributing, are giving, not just taking. So, yeah, that's the way I'll look at my future in the industry.
Brae Sokolski, thanks for joining me.
No worries, Ben. Pleasure. Great to chat.